Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. We have the Paris-Roubaix men's recap. I'm battling through. I'm like every classics rider that got sick after Gen Wevelgem. Really under the weather, but, professional podcaster will brave through. We have 258 Ks, 29 cobbled sectors. MVDP, the favourite before the race. Wout van Aert, second favourite with the Jumbo-Visma super team, but Alpesen's team would be arguably stronger today. And this has happened a lot this classic season, Benji. The break just never, ever goes because so many teams want to be in the break.
Exactly. I started listening on GCN Plus when it kick-started, and I heard that, okay, Oliver Naesen, 5 times attacking in the first 2 kilometers to try and get in that breakaway. Guillaume van Kersburg trying to get in the breakaway. Every team seemed to have 2 or 3 riders assigned at the start to be in the breakaway, because in Roubaix, you never know what group is actually going to get away. And you think to yourself, if we do it with 1 rider only, then we likely won't make the split that happens. So that's why a lot of teams are trying to get in there with lots of riders. And sometimes a group of 4 would start existing. Like there was one with Boasson Hagen and Ryan Mullen for a bit. But in reality, it took a while for a proper breakaway to form. And we had a breakaway that formed that was actually not a strong breakaway. But we were nearing the first couple sectors when this first break started getting away. So I was thinking, are we actually going to get to these couple sectors without a breakaway? But no. We had a breakaway in this race, and we had a German in there, Jonas Koch. We had another German in there. What's his name? Oh, God. Was the second
the
German
initial
guy? The break?
You're
God.
beyond me.
There were 4 riders in the breakaway.
There.
Yes. This breakaway had like a minute. We know that from this point onwards that we're getting into the cobble sectors pretty soon, and if you got a minute there, then we said it in the preview. The break will lose time towards the cobble sector as the peloton speeds up, trying to get into position before every cobble sector. And on the cobble sector, initially, the peloton will go a bit faster, but towards the end, they might settle themselves into a tempo that the breakaway can uphold as well. But after each cobble sector, there's this moment where the peloton kind of stocks, where the tempo kind of dies out for a tiny bit before someone else takes up arms, and that's where we notice that the break goes from like 40 seconds at the start of a cobble sector to 120 after the cobble sector. And this happens on every single cobble sector, but so much is happening behind. So many people have bad luck, so many crashes, so many punctures and so forth. But one of the main consequences there is that Quickstep gets demolished before we even get to Truid Arenberg, right? Asgreen, 2 punctures, Ballerini crashes, and I think Van Baarle was caught behind the crash early as well, which he needed to come back from towards the Forest of Valers, the Truid Arenberg. So we're really in this moment where everybody tries to survive, everybody tries to position themselves, and at first we see Wout van Aert with Jumbo positioning themselves on the first 2 cobble sectors at the front, because they know if we're at the front of the peloton, there's a less likelihood that someone else will crash in front of us. Then we see Alpecin doing that after that for a few cobble sectors, then Ineos, and it's basically survival mode, right?
Yeah, it's just people thinking, okay, it's all going to kick off on Truid Arenberg. I was kind of surprised not to see Guillaume van Kersburg try and get in the breakaway today. I thought he really would. Was it Valscheid in the early break? I'm not sure, but van Kersburg really... Nope. Yeah, he and Norsgaard for Movistar didn't try. Lozcano tried, and even when Trek, you could see Trek and Alpecin were trying, and Jumbo just was shutting it down. But yeah, I watched the whole race from start to finish in horizontal recovery mode on GCN Plus, wall-to-wall coverage, not just of Paris-Roubaix, but the upcoming Giro in less than a month, and then the Tour de France in July. And LRCP listeners can get 15% off an annual GCN Plus subscription in selected territories, bringing you every unmissable moment from these huge races like Paris-Roubaix, including pre- and post-game show as well. So go check out link out down below. But the plan was Alpecin then took control a little bit. The break hovered at 130. Alpecin just paced a lot. Ineos had some crashes. Tarling crashed out Luke Rowe in a tarmac corner.
Yep.
I think he would have got an earful for that. Sheffield crashed again. Quickstep, as you said, looked gone. And we're coming up to Havluy-Wallers. So this is after Denain. So we have the first phase of cobbles before Denain. Then there's the tarmac section. Everyone gets feed. Albertson with pacing is chill. Then Havluy-Wallers, Truey-D'Arenberg, and then the second... Yeah, chill, I guess. And then the second Wallers. That's the one. And then Jumbo-Visma do a lead out with Tim van Dijk. We'd not really seen where Dylan van Baarle or Nathan van Hooydonk was, but for Wout van Aert into the Havluy-Wallers with Christophe Laporte on his wheel, which that was the plan. Cliff notes the plan was to open up the race there. But Jumbo only got 2 in that group, Benji. And they had MVDP in there, the big rival, and Kung. And so I was like, Laporte even had MVDP on his wheel and he didn't let the wheel go. But the question was, where was Van Hooydonk and Dylan van Baarle for Jumbo-Visma? But still, I think they caught a lot of favourites by surprise, like Ineos and Pedersen.
Yeah, I think so as well. Van Hooydonk seemed to be positioned further, which is not ideal if you want to be in that front split. Van Baarle had to come back earlier, so maybe he wasn't positioned well when that moment happens. I feel like we've seen a few times this year where Van Baarle is not positioned ideally before the moment where you'd expect something to pop off. Now, if it indeed was the plan to go on Havluy-Wallers, he would know that he would need to be in a good position, so maybe he had trouble getting to the front. But I feel like it's something we've seen a few times this year when it comes to Van Baarle's positioning, and maybe that's why he prefers anticipating than going to the hill with the big guns in the first place. That being said, we see that group form. Degenkolb in there as well with Van der Poel, Kung, Laporte, and Wout van Aert, and that's a damn good group. And we see people behind that, and it's already a big gap. It's like Pedersen, Ganna, and so forth in like a second group that is behind. And
no,
we know
Pedersen
that...
was solo. Pedersen panicked.
That was a bit later. Pedersen panicked initially, but he then dropped back to the group and tried to fly again a bit later. But we've got this segment now between Havluy-Wallers and the actual Forest of Arenberg section where you'd expect things to pop up even more, Truey-D'Arenberg. And we see that the breakaway still has a bit of a gap. That's a group that's still ahead, but the gap is minimizing towards Truey-D'Arenberg. So the group behind will probably catch up on Truey-D'Arenberg is what we'd probably be expecting at that point in the race. And Truey-D'Arenberg is like Truey-D'Arenberg is the section where, probably known as Gate to Hell, where you'd expect groups to try and come back together and people to bridge 2 groups ahead because it's really bloody long and it's a really hard 5-star cobbled sector. And that's where Pedersen tries to bridge up to throughout Truey-D'Arenberg to the front group. And, well, he has a bit of luck in the front group, no?
Well, yeah, it helped. Well, I think Pedersen didn't need to do that bridge. He could have waited with Ganna because Jumbo and Co weren't riding full on Arenberg. Just like last year, Jumbo-Visma have a catastrophic failure of their equipment. Oh, I say that. Yeah. They had a flat rear tyre. Catastrophic. They had a flat tyre for Laporte, but strategically, this completely changed the race. So, and then behind, and Laporte, he's every year in Roubaix, he's had multiple mechanicals. Terrible luck in Roubaix, or maybe he hits the cobbles differently. I don't know. Dylan van Baarle crashes himself out of the race. He's in a bad crash behind on Truey-D'Arenberg. The plan was get riders in the front group, Pedersen and Ganna panic, Van Hooydonk and Van Baarle get brought back by them. You have 4 riders in a group of 9, and then you can start to work over Van der Poel. Instead, what happens? Laporte flats. The wheel change takes so long that Pedersen goes past, Ganna goes past, and the Alpecin, in a group with Alpecin having 2 riders, Philipsen and Vermeersch goes past, and Laporte's another 20 seconds, 30 seconds behind them after the wheel change, after Arenberg. So he's now sitting in the middle of no man's land with the peloton with like quick step, sort of just with no one chasing behind. Van Baarle's crashed out. Van Hooydonk's sitting in the group behind. And even with Van Aert not working in front, when the Alpecin group with Ganna gets over, with Pedersen who gets over, and Degenkolb's there, by the way, we haven't mentioned him, they all start working. Now all of a sudden you have 3 Alpecin, 1 Jumbo. Wow, with like 90 Ks to go.
Exactly. So it shifted completely from Jumbo having an upper hand in the front group over Van der Poel to a situation where Alpecin has an upper hand numerical advantage on Wout van Aert in that front group. And Laporte obviously is in a moment where he's likely going to Chasse Patate if he keeps going, so he falls back towards the group that is behind where, let's be honest about it, you're sitting in a situation where you're probably going to have to solve it yourself with Jumbo, because Quickstep Asgreen crashed once again as well on Through It Arenberg, so Quickstep like half devoured. They also weren't there when they needed to be with Lampard and so forth, so clearly not good enough when it mattered. The likes of Lotto are the ones that are trying to pace, the likes of Israel.
Yeah,
so
Bahrain.
it's very unlikely that that group gets back to the front. And from that point onwards, I was focused on that front group, that group with the likes of Vermeers, Philipsen, for your boy Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert in there, Degenkolb in there, Pedersen in there, Kung in there, and Ganna in there. I do have to mention there's a few riders that were part of this segment. We saw a good race of Matis Mikkels, who was great on Through It Arenberg, but had I think a front wheel pretty much collapsing in front of him while he was in that front group, as he had anticipated before Through It Arenberg. He did a great race, 19 years old, top rider. You love the guy, eh? Matis Mikkels, the way he sprinted in, was it Croatia?
In a Tour of Estonia ahead of Groves last
Laurens
year.
Rix was also there. The Intermarché rider, Belgian dude. Also a very strong race. You might remember as the guy that was basically almost shoved off the road by Ballerini in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, then Ballerini crashed. Laurens Rix was also in that group, so a really strong performance by those guys. But what did you think when you saw that group? You were like,
well, in this phase, I thought the main tactical mistake I can point to for Jumbo today is letting the peloton go out to 150 with Laporte chasing on his own at like 112 when afterwards they decide to close it with Van Hooijdonk and Laporte anyway. They should have put someone on the front when it was at 1 minute or 55 seconds and chased full gas, catch Laporte, he saves energy. Whether that was maybe someone couldn't after Arenberg, I don't know. We don't have clear shots of Group 3, I think it was, on the road, but that's where you point to afterwards. Yeah, then when it goes out to 150, Van Hooijdonk goes clear, Laporte and Vermeersch, Florian, that is, bridge on the Orshi sector. But yeah, Group 1, I didn't think they were ever coming back. Wout was sitting on, correct thing to do, but because Ganna, Degenkolb, Kung, Valscheid, Rex, who else? They were all working despite Alpecin having 3 in the group. Philipsen and Vermeersch. I was really surprised by that. Really surprised. I thought it's their responsibility to pull the gap out to Laporte and keep him behind, and that way you're not dealing with as many Alpecin yourself in the final.
Firmly agree. They're reducing the chances of themselves winning by probably thinking, if I keep working here, I'm securing at least a top position in this race, a top X amount of position in this race, which that's not really the mentality that will get you on the top step of the Paris-Roubaix podium. That's a mentality that might get you a 4th position, a 5th position, or a 6th position in this race. And we see that playing out where every single cobble sector or the flat parts in between, I'm like, Ganna, why are you pacing? Walshad, why are you pacing? And there's moments where they're showing weakness. But I do have to tell you, Vermeersch rode a hell of a race. There were moments where he was dying in the wheel, and he had trouble following the likes of Laurens Rix in last wheel in this group after doing so much work, and he held on to the next sector, worked again. And Philipsen also, godlike work in this section of the race on every cobble sector. He went to the front. Were you surprised that they don't do the Quickstep and Jumbo strategy that we see in an Omloop the last 2 years, where if a group with a numerical advantage happens, that they try and get a Philipsen ahead or something to force the others to chase, or was it not necessary here?
No, because Philipsen's probably the fastest sprinter in the group, but best sprinter in the world. So they're like, well, if we go deep into the final with Philipsen and Van der Poel, then... And also, Wout doesn't have teammates. And also, I gotta say, when we look at the notes, really, since the Laporte, Van Hooijdonk, Vermeersch attempted but failed bridge, and then this group forming at like 75Ks to go, nothing happens in this race. I mean, that's not entirely true. Like, MVDP tried to attack a few times, but really that nothing decisive happened in this race. Valscheid tried to anticipate one time. No Kung anticipation, no Ganna anticipation. Valscheid tried one time. Philipsen, I couldn't quite figure out. Well, No, I could figure it out. Degenkolb, Pedersen, and Philipsen, they all tried to have front position in each cobbled sector to ride their own pace and to prevent MVDP or Wout attacking. And yeah, MVDP attacked a few times and Wout closed him decently. There was
Easily.
one time he did get a gap, but then Kung pulled Wout most of the way, and then Van Aert, I think, bridged across pretty comfortably.
Yeah, on Bercy. Bercy was where Van der Poel goes in that corner around, I think, Philipsen. And Wout van Aert is in like 5th position, and therefore he can't instantly respond.
And Vermeersch closes
and that's why he
legally.
Yeah, yeah. Is that also not because he calculates in, oh, Kung will have something left to close it, and then I can make the final bridge? I feel like it's probably a calculated move more than I can't instantly respond here. I think it's a positioning issue that led to that situation, but he's able to bridge, and I felt like the bridging was very, very easy. Like, at this point in the race, I was looking at Wout, and I was like, he's looking extremely strong in this race. Van der Poel, obviously, as well. He's making the attacks up front. Then Achilles-Archi is that segment where every single year we say one favorite attacks on Achilles-Archi, Bercy, every single time. But there was no difference between them. Obviously, the likes of Laurens Rex and so forth are falling off the back. Great race by that dude, but not good enough to stay with the best guys as expected, to be honest. And Mons-en-Pavel comes, and that brings me to the second attack you mentioned by Van der Poel, where Wout is directly in the wheel, and that's where Philipsen does something weird, where Philipsen just closes Wout's attack and brings all the rest back. Closes Wout, who was on the wheel on Van der Poel, and brings the rest back. And I was like, if you let this play out, the two are off there, but would Wout take over if he rode off there with Van der Poel? Probably, because he wants Philipsen to be gone.
I think Wout would pull, but there's a couple. I don't think Alpecin played the final necessarily perfectly. Like, they could have, in more instances, when MVDP attacked from in front of Philipsen and Philipsen shut off his back wheel, or this situation, you got to make Pedersen or Degenkolb close that for you. And I do think Wout would have definitely pulled 50-50 with MVDP, and I think MVDP might have even pulled with him, despite having Philipsen behind. But we'll never know. But we're thinking, we've had a status quo for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Something has to give. Surely this group, not everybody wants to go to the finish. Firstly, with Philipsen. Secondly, if you're Van Aert, Pedersen. And I was thinking Camp Van and Pavel or Carrefour de l'Arbre would be where everyone, where Wout launches. I also thought Ganna and Kung would try and get ahead before then, because if Wout goes there or MVP goes there, they're going to be riding off into the sunset.
Exactly, and the reason we know that is because after Mons-en-Pavel came, that small hill where Van der Poel went, Kung just cracked, and Degenkolb was in the wheel, Pedersen was in the wheel, and the two clearly strongest riders in this race that were up there, Philipsen I would include as one of the strongest riders in this race as well, but the two that were clearly having a gap there was Wout van Aert and Van der Poel. Van der Poel doing that attack, Wout van Aert in the wheel, and the rest couldn't follow. So that suggests that if you get to Carrefour de l'Arbre, that a Ganna will drop, that a Kung will drop. And that's what I don't understand about their strategy going into those sections, Cor Vos, Pavel, and Carrefour de l'Arbre, that they don't try something like last year, Van Baarle. Because do you think the presence of Philipsen is the reason that they don't do that?
I don't know, because was Philipsen really going to chase down attacks? Like, Vermeersch was kind of doing that role. I don't know. They didn't try. And listen, they were cooked at the end. I'm just saying, if you don't try before the 5-star last sector, you're going to get spat. And at this point, by the way, the cars have moved up. So for a long time in this group, there was no car. So if you flattered, you were stuffed. Philipsen flats. He gets a bike change from the car, gets back really quickly, no problem. So that was easy for him. But we get to Carrefour de l'Arbre, the last 5-star sector, I think it is. It's been building the tension all day. We have this group of favourites, and Philipsen's on the front. Degenkolb's moving up on the right-hand side, and MVDP starts to move. He wants to attack around Philipsen like I said he should, to the right in the gutter.
Yeah.
And Philipsen also moves to the right a little bit, and essentially there's a coming together. MVDP shoulder checks Degenkolb into the ditch, and Degenkolb's race is over. And also Van der Poel is slowed down a little bit, and Van Aert scoots off the left-hand side, and gets a gap too.
What do we think about this specific incident? Because if I go on Twitter after that incident, half is asking for a disqualification of Van der Poel, half is asking for a disqualification of Philipsen, and because there's no half left, I'll still say that another half, like another third, was saying, okay, it's a race incident. I believe that Philipsen goes to the right, and Van der Poel cannot expect that Philipsen will go to the right at the same moment that he tries to get around Philipsen. It's like they don't have like clarity of the future, eh? Like Degenkolb, he tries to come on the pass, he's perfectly allowed to do so. I think it's a race incident, and I don't think you can blame Philipsen for going to the right at that point either. He just causes a crash accidentally by going to the right, therefore pushing Van der Poel, and therefore Van der Poel pushes Degenkolb into the ditch. And I don't blame Van der Poel either, because the gap that he went for was there before Philipsen went to the right. I checked back multiple times, there was a gap large enough to go through. And if that's the case, I don't think you can point anything, but it's really sad for Degenkolb's race because that dude was on absolute fire.
I think Van der Poel calls the crash. Is it DSQ worthy? No. No one ever gets disqualified for this, but he could have braked for a little bit of it. He was attacking, and he's like, I don't want to lose momentum. Degenkolb was there, and he just fucked over Degenkolb by like squeezing him. He had the opportunity to brake, not overlap wheels for Philipsen, and Degenkolb probably doesn't crash, but he was like, meh, my space.
Meh.
So, but DSQ, like, listen, that's not even a conversation. That doesn't happen in cycling unless you're the Massiuk incident. So, but yeah, it's a big shame for Degenkolb. This is probably the best he's looked in a big race for a very, very long time. Would he have won? Probably not, but, you know, I would have liked to have seen him fighting out for the podium. So that was a huge shame. Yep. Van Aert then realizes, as he's clear on Carrefour de l'Arbre, he has a flat. He has a flat tire as he's gapped MVDP, and then he's looking down, he's slowing down. As he gets on the radio, he says, I have a flat, and MVDP immediately...
You heard it.
Well, no, he gets on the radio.
Yeah,
well,
right.
I don't think he was saying I'm having a great time. I think he was saying I had a flat.
I love riding on flat tires.
Yeah, and then MVP goes to front and drops him, and the race is over. So, listen, pretty anticlimactic finish, frankly. We could have had the two juggernauts fighting it out. Who would have won? I'm not sure. Van der Poel looked extremely strong, but yeah, he rides away with Van Aert having a flat after Carrefour de l'Arbre, or during Carrefour de l'Arbre. So, yeah, Van der Poel rides away solo, wins the race after a dramatic Carrefour de l'Arbre. Van Aert, again, changes tyre, gets back to Pedersen and Philipsen. Philipsen disrupts the chase. Kungana get dropped. And Philipsen beats Van Aert in the sprint for second after Van Aert dropped Pedersen. I think he was just wanting to get on the podium. So Philipsen, unreal race. Van der Poel wins his third different monument.
You called it 2 years ago, eh? Philipsen would do great at Roubaix. You just were a bit too early when saying it. But such a wonderful race by Jasper Philipsen. We cannot highlight enough how much this dude did this race. He was spacing while Vermeers was spacing. He was doing most of the work after Vermeers was done. And he kept on going to then try and disturb the chase when Van der Poel had the gap after Carrefour de l'Arbre. He actively did so properly. When Pedersen tried to move, jumped to his wheel, stopped the tempo because Pedersen looks back and nobody's taking over. And Philipsen did so much in this race. Definitely one of the strongest riders in this race.
Yeah, unreal.
I personally believe that this was Wout's opportunity to win Roubaix 100%, and something out of his control ruined the chance for him to do that. I personally believe he was the strongest in this race, but it's very difficult to say because Van der Poel attacked 3 times. I feel like he was the strongest in the race after Carrefour de l'Arbre. Well, before Carrefour de l'Arbre. After the 3 attacks of Van der Poel, you would expect Wout van Aert to have spent less energy, right? And
yeah,
it's difficult
I've
to
never
say
seen
whether
him sit
that
in this
gap,
much.
Yeah, it's like he rode the relatively perfect race before he arrived in Carrefour de l'Arbre. He opened it up early on Haveluy-Abalers, but the rest of the time he was able to benefit from other people riding. He didn't ride too much when it was unnecessary. There's a few times where I was like, well, go with the front quickly, come on. When Nathan was trying to catch up Laporte, he was at the front pacing for a bit. And I was like, that's not the moment to do that. But then again, he got off the front and directly let the others do the work again. And it's disappointing that we didn't see the clash of the titans till the end. Because I hated when a race gets decided by a puncture. Van der Poel could have won. 100% he could have won. He could have destroyed him in the velodrome, could have dropped him in Hem. Probably not, unlike this tiny cobbles.
Or Van der Poel could have worked with Wout, with Philipsen behind and lost, and that would have been a huge debate.
Exactly.
And I think he would have worked with Wout.
He was spacing with Wout punctured in the wheel. So
yeah, I mean, you can say it's bad luck,
but
you can, but Jumbo-Visma have punctured on Carrefour-Labre 2 years in a row, or wheel collapses. Laporte punctured twice. At pivotal moments, Van Aert punctures here. He punctured last year like 2-3 times, I remember, in the final, and the cars were there, so it wasn't as big a deal, but it wasn't in the last 12-15 Ks, but I don't know. I'm not an equipment technician, but apparently Alpecin are running the same tires.
Yeah.
Maybe MVDP chooses different lines. I think so. But, I mean, like, so yeah, it's a luck element. But yeah, huge win for MVDP, his second monument of the year, ahead of Philipsen, his teammate. The Alpecin 1-2, Van Aert 3rd, Pedersen 4th, Kung 5th, Ganna 6th, Degenkolb 7th on 2:35, Valscheid an impressive 8th, Rex 9th, Laporte won the group sprint with that Chasse-Patat group ahead of Vermeersch, and then Christophe, of course, won the Peloton sprint.
And it's weird because, like, before the classic season started, we were like, if Jumbo doesn't win a monument here, whether it's a Milano-San Remo or RVV or Roubaix, I was saying, okay, that's a failure of a classic season. But they won like 5 like semi-classics, and then Roubaix arrives and they were on the brink of having a chance of really winning it. And then it's a puncture that takes away the chance of trying to take that. And I'm like, I can't really call that a failure of a classic season, eh? Because you don't know what could have been.
Yeah, but, you know, Dylan Van Baarle wasn't in good position into Arenberg. Should it have been Wout launching on Have-Louis de Waloers or Nathan from the front? So, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Like, if you have a flat at the end of Carrefour-Labre, there's only so much you can do. So yeah, like, not the finish we were probably hoping for in the end.
But a great winner, nonetheless. A dude that Mathieu van der Poel won Milano-San Remo. He's won 2 Ronde van Vlaanderens. He's now on Paris-Roubaix. And that's equalizing the amount of monuments that Pogacar has won. But I do feel like Pogacar has a bigger chance of winning all 5 than Mathieu van der Poel has, obviously. I would say that we were talking about Alpecin, like, where are they? Where's Alpecin? At the end of February, when they hadn't done shit.
Yeah,
and then they arrive and they win like
a race.
Then they win most of the stuff that arrives. Crazy comeback.
And yeah, Van der Poel, he wins the big races, and even at E3 in Ronde van Vlaanderen, he was second, so not far away either. He has 2,600 UCI points in 13 race days, which is kind of crazy because the monuments are really heavily weighted. So Alpecin are going to be just fine with Van der Poel and Philipsen riding like this. And he is a deserved winner because he was aggressive all day. He rode on the front probably more than he had to. And he was always pushing the tempo. He wasn't just leaning on Vermeersch and Philipsen to pace, you know, with him in the wheels the whole time. And he even attacked several times. But yeah, I wonder where Degenkolb, I would have liked to have seen him v Pedersen v Philipsen. That would have been cool to see.
Yeah.
Like Degenkolb, I didn't think he had this in him anymore.
Yeah, but it's like the silent top 20 guy this year, I feel like. I swear he was like 12th in the Wevelgem, 10th in another race. He was like top 15 nearly everywhere, and that's showing that you're still there. And it's a real bummer that the moment that he's really here, that he's really showing that he can compete with the best, that he was in a good position at the right time, that he gets taken out like that. I can't blame anyone personally. I don't feel like I can blame anyone here. I know we kind of disagree on that, but it sucks for the race that Degenkolb can show it. It sucks for the race that Wout versus Mathieu van der Poel didn't happen. Because this race would have been great if the last 15K were like a very stressful chase or a very stressful 1v1. I'd love that. I don't care who wins from the two. I just want the race to be stressful until the end. That's the thing last year. The race last year was great until Van Baarle got away and it was obvious that he was going to win. Because then it got boring until the finish line. I want the stress to be until the finish line, and that's something I missed today, but still an amazing winner in Mathieu van der Poel, an amazing battle throughout the cobbles until Cor Vos Larbre. Riders that I didn't expect to be there were there. Degenkolb, but also Laurens Rex who got there. Philipsen, who rides probably one of the best races of his life. Is that too much?
No, it's pretty good. Yeah, I think it's better than winning maybe Tour de France sprint, winning that's pretty special. But yeah, second Roubaix, and also how active he was is really impressive. The tire pressure systems stuff, a lot of talk about that. I'm not sure if that actually impacted anyone's race. I'll be interested to know. I don't think anyone in the front group was using it.
I think Laporte used it, but he wasn't really there for too long. Wout and Degenkolb both didn't use it.
Didn't use it. Okay. Anyway, that's Paris-Roubaix men's. Oh, that wraps up the weekend. We had Action Alison Jackson winning yesterday. Mathieu van der Poel winning today as the favorite. Gets the job done. And bad luck for Jumbo-Visma, but swings and roundabouts, I guess. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to check out GCN Plus for the races coming up. We've got a little break, I think, until Amstel Gold Race, in which time I'll recover from my illness. Yep. I think that's in a week, right?
I think so. Yes, yeah, I think
next Sunday.
Correct.
Ardennes are here already. Crazy. And then we're into the Giro, so it's non-stop cycling fun. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you with maybe something in the week. No promises. Till then, ciao.